The second movie in Abbas Kiarostami's Coker trilogy, this is And Life Goes On, sometimes also called Life and Nothing More. Very interesting movie as it relates to the previous movie, Where Is My Friend's House? And I'm going to tell you what I think this movie is about, why I really like it, coming up next. So what makes And Life Goes On really great? That's a good question. I do not assume that most people will enjoy this movie at all. It does take a lot of a detachment from normal kinds of movie watching, a willingness to observe, a willingness even to be absorbed by the movie and hypnotized by it, which I think is why it's successful for me, because I really enjoy just taking the car ride that this movie provides throughout its entire runtime. This movie was released in 1992, and it's based on the first movie in the trilogy, or what would become the trilogy, Where Is My Friend's House? You should check out my video on that where I discuss that and I tell you what I think it's about in part. I do think you should watch Where Is My Friend's House first, because this movie And Life Goes On makes a number of references to it, including bringing back a number of the actors whom you will recognize if you've seen that first movie fairly recently or if it's on your mind. This film is about a car ride, and it's often the case in, say, Hollywood advertising where they will say, this movie is a ride or a thrill ride. That is literally what happens to you, the viewer in this movie, as the camera is the passenger in the car of a film director who is taking his son to go see the characters or the actors who played characters in the movie Where Is My Friend's House? And I think they're going to go see these actors because not only do they love the movie and they care for those people, but there's been a gigantic and awful earthquake, the 1990 earthquake in Iran that killed unbelievably, horrifically, 30,000 people, over 30,000 people, centered in this area of Koker, a small village, and Pashta, where the movie Where Is My Friend's House took place. A lot of the movie is simply observing the roadside, and you are a passenger as you go 20 miles an hour in this car, let's say, and you'll see all the roadside problems, the horrific aftermath of the earthquake. This movie is a great observation, almost a documentary of what it looked like right after that horrible earthquake. The film director himself becomes an observer. This is obviously a metaphor for the artist, the director of a movie who is trying to figure out how to shoot a movie. Here the actor playing the director is maybe a stand-in for Kiarostami himself. Along the car trip, the director meets a number of people, talks to a number of people, either just for a minute or two, asking them where to go, or by actually bringing them into the car. The movies that Kiarostami shows us here, the Coker trilogy, are about helping other people, or new people meeting other people, helping each other out. There's teamwork, there's sort of cultural or national loyalty among strangers, and that happens in this movie, I think in contrast to Where Is My Friend's House, in which the young boy was not getting any help from the adults who wouldn't listen to him. The director is taking a journey in his car, and the question, will he ever get there, is one question. The metaphor of, in the movie, life is a journey, obviously featured in both possible titles, And Life Goes On. Life is a journey, the car ride as a metaphor for that kind of journey, and then the observation of life via this director's own sort of insight as he sees different things in this film.
شما مطمئنی از اینجا راه داره؟
به هر حال هر راهی به یه جایی راه داره دیگه.
پس بنبست چیه؟
The movie has more of a documentary feel than Where Is My Friend's House. I think that's intentional, as this begins as the second movie in the trilogy, the inverted Russian doll effect, where you have a movie world within the movie world. These characters in the movie will go to the set, the actual town location, Pashta, for example, of Where Is My Friend's House. They are talking about a movie that they've seen, not unlike we in real life could watch Where Is My Friend's House. So one of the tricks in this movie is it feels like they are in the same world that we are. Although Kiarostami's major point in his movie, so many of them, is that the movie world is its own world. And it may seem like ours, but it's still a simulation of it. One of the major themes in Where Is My Friend's House are doorways, new doorways versus old doorways, the kid going through doorways. And in this movie, the doorways, a lot of them have been destroyed by the earthquake. There are no more doorways. There's rubble. There are open passageways. And that becomes very important, I think, for some of the what greater theological or philosophical discussion in the movie that comes up occasionally, which the characters wrestle with why did this horrible tragedy happen. And basically every scene or every conversation is about how did people survive, what happened to their family members, who died, what sort of dire circumstances are they now in, and then the question of, did God do this? Was it just the earthquake? Does God create earthquakes? These questions can be framed, obviously, for the Islamic culture that these people are in, or they could be more generalized for perhaps anybody in the world, depending on what God you believe in or don't believe in. This movie's metaphor of life as a journey is, again, showing us shots like Where Is My Friend's House, in which the kid goes up a zigzag hill. We will see that hill again, and the zigzag hill, the uphill journey that the film director takes, not on foot, as in Where Is My Friend's House, the kid only walking, but here the car journey, which is very different. It's obviously advanced civilization, it's technology, and the car allows us to go faster, to go farther, but it also prevents us from going to places that our own 2 feet could take us. That's one of the ideas coming up in this movie. In this movie, Kiarostami curiously chooses a piece by Vivaldi, a Baroque piece, to, I think, connect a number of scenes to give this movie a different sort of feel than I think what was the more natural or local music. Sounded like Iranian music to me, or Middle Eastern, in Where Is My Friend's House. That makes this movie perhaps a little bit more universal, or at least more European, and then this piece played over the top gives us the sense in a number of ways that this movie is not a documentary. And that's one of the things the movie is doing. On the one hand, it looks so real. On the other hand, Kiarostami wants to keep showing us, as he does in so many of his movies, like, for example, Taste of Cherry, or Through the Olive Trees, which comes up in the third Coker trilogy, that movies are just movies, even if they are ultra realistic, even if they're filming real people in real settings, it's still a simulated world. I think that's part of what the classical music brings to this movie here. And nevertheless, that music brings a dignity and a pleasurability, or some sense of pleasure here, even though we're looking at rubble and hearing people talk about their horrible circumstances. The idea of helping strangers, as I said, comes up here in spades. Where Is My Friend's House was about a kid who went out of his way to help his classmate when no one else would help the classmate, and he was very worried about the classmate. That seems to, in this movie world outside the Where Is My Friend's House movie world, spurred on, for example, the director and his son to go help out these people that have been in the movie, as well as a number of villagers they encounter. For example, the director often hauls things up in his car up hills to help people out as they're carrying things, including the old man who appears in Where Is My Friend's House. I think the point being that the movie Where Is My Friend's House is supposed to spur on viewers, including the director and his son, to help people out. There's more cultural unity, there's more loyalty to strangers, love for strangers here in this movie, perhaps spurred on by Kiarostami's own work. Stick with this one, try it out, and the final 2 or 3 shots are really great and amusing, and then they interconnect with Where's My Friend's House in the last movie in the trilogy, and this one begins to show us that in fact the whole trilogy has some very interesting relationships between 3 different movies in 3 different movie worlds. What do you think of And Life Goes On, or Life and Nothing More? Is it the best or the worst movie in this trilogy? Did you appreciate it, or could you not stand it? Let us know in the comments. Please subscribe to the channel for more great content. Thank you. Have a great day.